the the info for the webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's here, and thank you so much for participating in this webinar. My introduction will not be very long, but as you could see, we have a diverse group of speakers coming from different parts of the globe, actually. And I'll start with, of course, with Pedro Torres, who's from the UNFC Secretariat, who will talk about everything about what we need to know about the technical expert review, what it's about, what are the duties and activities of the expert, and how one becomes an expert. So I'll stop sharing my. Wait. There's an introduction to that. I forgot about that. Sorry. So, all right. So let me introduce Pedro. Pedro Torres from the UNFCCC Secretariat has over 2 decades of dedicated service to climate change matters. In 1999, Pedro started to work on greenhouse gas inventories in the Portuguese Environmental Agency, later joining the European Commission, and since 2015, the UNFCCC Secretariat. Today, Pedro is with the Transparency Division at the UNFCCC, working with greenhouse gas inventories and supporting the transition to the enhanced transparency framework of the Paris Agreement. With that, I'll turn over the floor to Pedro. I'll stop sharing my screen so that he could share his screen for his presentation. Pedro?
Thanks a lot, Lisa. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you also for the introduction. I'll have a presentation. I'll share my screen. I'll try to do that. Just give me a moment. Let me know if you can see. Wait, but I need to share the sound too, because I will have a video later on. Second. All right. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
All right. Good. So let me show you the outline of the presentation. I'll talk very briefly about the enhanced transparency framework, but I think it's important to give some background, and then I'll cover what the types of reviews that we will have and what are the tasks for the team of experts, and then I will show which training courses we will have available, and then the steps for experts to be involved in the reviews. So let me start with the basics. So the Paris Agreement, in addition to setting temperature goals, it also established enhanced transparency framework. And this is about ensuring transparency of climate data, which is reported by the parties. And this climate information is about mitigation and adaptation actions, as well on support provided to the developing country parties. There is a big difference from the rules that we have under the convention and the rules that we will have under the Paris Agreement. The big difference is that now we have a framework that applies to all parties, developed and developing country parties. So it's one set of rules for all, which is different from what we had under the convention until now. Of course, there are some flexibility provisions in this set of rules, and this is to facilitate the reporting from some parties, because not all parties are at the same capacity for generating the reports which are needed to submit to the UNFCCC. So some parties have more capacity than others. So the ones that have less capacity can apply these flexibility provisions in order to facilitate the reporting. There is a set of rules which are called these MPGs, the modalities, procedures, and guidelines. And these rules then ensure that the transparency requirements of the enhanced transparency framework can be fulfilled. And according with these rules, parties will have to submit their first biennial transparency reports by the end of 2024. So this is for all parties. All parties that are parties to the Paris Agreement will have to prepare the BTRs and submit to the UNFCCC by the end of 2024. And these reports are subject to review, and this is where the expert reviews will come into play. And I'll show the tasks they will have to do and how you can get involved. The BTRs, the biennial transparency reports, have several components. Let me show you what type of information they will contain. So you will see here there are information which is of mandatory reporting nature, and some information which is of voluntary reporting nature. So you will see that the greenhouse gas inventory is one of the main components of this biennial transparency reports, and this is of a mandatory nature. So all parties, no matter whether they are developing or developed country parties, they will have to submit the greenhouse gas inventory report, as well as information on how they are progressing towards achieving their goals that are established in the national determined contributions. So the pledges from the party for addressing climate change. So the goals that they set for themselves. So they will have to report information how they are progressing to achieve these goals, and this information will then be subject to review. There are elements which are mandatory only for developed country parties, and this is the information on support provided to developing country parties in terms of financial support or support for technology transfer or support for capacity building. So developed country parties will have to provide this information. And then in the lower part of the graph, you have elements which will be part of the BTRs, but are of voluntary nature. And this regards information on climate change impacts and adaptation, as well as information on support needed and received. And this is support needed by developing country parties. As you will see, all the information will be subject to review. And the review procedures, they are the same for all parties. So these are the basics for the enhanced transparency framework. So just to provide a bit of context, so what the parties will have to report, and also important to understand that they will start to report this at the end of 2024. Next, I will cover the tasks of the team of experts and the types of reviews that we will have. So the first biennial transparency reports, they have to be subject to an in-country review. And this is a type of review where a team of experts will travel to the country under review, and during 1 week, they will work together, the team of experts, to review the submission by the party. So they will have the opportunity to interact with the experts from the party, to learn about their internal arrangements to prepare their submission. So this is an in-depth work. So there will be a lot of engagement, a lot of discussions. There will be presentations from the party and presentations from the team of experts. It's where you learn a lot from what the party is doing and how they prepare their reports. It's a very good learning experience. And then the other type of reviews that we have, it's centralized reviews. And this requires larger teams of experts, which they gather in a regional location. Normally, this takes place in Bonn. So a large group of experts will meet in Bonn, and they will review information from several parties at the same time. Then there is the desk reviews. The desk reviews, they are used to a lesser extent, so they are not so common, and they are normally conducted by more experienced experts, which already are very familiar with the process, and they don't require so much support from the secretariat, or they don't require so much support from other members of the team, so they are very independent and they are familiar and they know very well the process, and they can conduct desk reviews from their own location. So the communication between experts in the team is remote, and also the communication with the party is also remote. And then there is the simplified reviews, and here there are no experts involved. This simplified review is only done by the secretariat and focus on the inventory. And this is mostly done through automated checks, which will then generate the report. And this report then will be used for other types of reviews. So this is the types of reviews. Let's see now what are the tasks of the experts. What do they have to do during the reviews? There is as I mentioned, there is this modalities, procedures, and guidelines. This is the user manual for preparing reports, and also it establishes the procedures for the review. So what the team has to do is check the submission by the party and see how it adheres to the MPGs. And whenever the team finds discrepancies, then they will have to highlight this in the report, and this will be an area for the party to improve. So checking consistency with the MPGs is the main task of the team of experts. Then they will also assess how is the party progressing towards achieving their NDCs, towards achieving their goals. They will see whether the party is on track to meet the goals, or if there is any discrepancies, what adjustments are needed. Then the team will also check or assess the support provided in terms of financial contributions, through which channels the contributions were provided, and for which purpose. And also they will check which technology transfer projects are being implemented or supported, and also what is how the developed country party is providing support in order to help the developing country party to develop its own capacity. Then in blue we have whenever there is a discrepancy, the team will identify areas where the report can be improved. So this is very important, and also whether the country needs to increase its capacity in order to fully implement the enhanced transparency framework. So overall, this in general, this is what the team has to do. And of course, there will be different experts. Each expert will be focused on a certain area of the report. So one expert does not have to cover the whole report by the party. This slide is a bit packed, but my intention here is just to let you know that we plan to start the reviews in early 2025. So there's the timeline for the review, but here I just want to let you know that the submissions are due in the end of 2024, and the Secretariat plans to start the review process in early 2025. So what do you have to do to be part or to be engaged and to be involved in reviews? So you will need to take some training. There is first first training course is the course A, which is called the overview course, and this talks about cross-cutting aspects and um, how the review process takes place, so the procedures for the review. And this course is already available online, so it's open for everyone. And every expert that will participate on reviews under the Paris Agreement will have to take this course and will have to do the examination. Even if you participated in previous reviews, you still need to do the overview course. And then there are these other more sectoral specific courses. There are a course for greenhouse gas inventories, a course for tracking progress for the towards the NDC, and also a course for support provided. You don't need to take all these courses. So you need to take course A, the overview, and one more course, one more sector-specific course. And these courses will be available during these months. And depending on your background, on your experience, on your interest, then you choose the course which you think better fits to you. If you have been involved in compiling inventories on your own country, then you could take the course B for inventories. If you have experience on mitigation actions or on projections, on verification or monitoring of implementation of mitigation actions, then you could take course C. If you are involved in or if you have background in providing support to parties in terms of grants or loans, or if you are involved in implementation of projects in developing country parties, then maybe course D on support is better suited for you. As I mentioned, you don't need to take all of them, just overview and one more. All these courses will be available online, so they are open access. They are self-paced, so you don't need to follow a rigid schedule. You can take the training at your own pace. The trainings, they include practical exercises to help you then to be more prepared for the exams. So course A, as I mentioned, is already available. So it's on the UNFCCC website. You have the link there and the QR codes. It doesn't take too long to follow this training course. And we already had several rounds of examinations. The passing rate of these exams is quite high. It's above 90%. So the exam is not so difficult. And we will have another round of examinations in early September. But I think for this round, I think you're not in position to follow the examinations because first you need to be nominated. But we will have 2 more rounds until the end of the year. So maybe you want to take note of these dates. The 4th round of examination will be in the end of October. And then the 5th and last rounds for this year will be in mid-November. And you will need to be nominated in order to register for these examinations. So they will cover only course A overview. Now I'll talk a bit on how you can get involved, but also what are the benefits for CGIAR to nominate and support experts and send them into the reviews. So we think it's important for CGIAR to nominate experts because by sending experts to the reviews, the institution will be directly involved in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And this will reinforce its position as a leader in agriculture and climate change matters. So that's quite important. Then you'll also be in, you also gather knowledge in terms of the policies that are being implemented in different countries. And that will, I think it will help the institution to also to develop strategies for more resilient and sustainable agriculture, and then implement or advise the implementation of these practices in other regions. It will create opportunities for establishing relationships with governments. It will also strengthen the relationship with the UNFCCC and also with other intergovernmental organizations. And this might provide opportunities for future projects and initiatives. So I think it's a way to stay involved and stay relevant. The experts that will participate in reviews will be part of a learning experience. They will be exposed to information and they will gather knowledge. They will be interacting with experts from all around the world with different backgrounds, from different cultures. And all this knowledge then can be integrated into the research done by CGIAR. So I think that's also very important. In terms of funding, there is, of course, there is some costs, upfront costs that are related with sending the experts to the reviews, to costs to cover traveling and also subsistence during the week they are doing the review. But we think that this can be covered by then other opportunities for financing, because then CGIAR we can showcase that is participating directly in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And this could be very important for some donors or for some partners that are keen in contributing to the cause. And this could then create additional funding opportunities for the future. And one more benefit would be that the institution will be sending its own experts to the review process. So it can bring its expertise into the review and provide the necessary attention to the agriculture matters. So keep up in the agenda the agriculture matters within the review process. And I think this is also very important. So overall, these are the benefits that the institution might have in nominating and sending their experts to the reviews. There are already some experts nominated by intergovernmental organizations, but these are not many experts. They're just a limited number of experts. And we think that this is because the IGOs are not aware that they can be involved. They don't know the procedures for nominating experts. So I'm very pleased today to be here and to help on that front and help CGIAR to get this information and be able to nominate experts for for the reviews. Now, from the point of view of the expert, what are the benefits? Why should the expert be involved in reviews? Well, first, because this is a very good learning experience, a continuous learning experience, and you will, by participating in reviews and also by doing the training, you will have a new set of skills which can be used to develop your career. And then you will also know firsthand what are the needs of the developing country parties and other parties in terms of the needs for them to build their capacity to be more resilient countries. I think this is very important. And you will then use your expertise in helping these countries to build their capacity, in helping these countries to adapt to the climate change challenges. And this is very empowering and rewarding. Also, you will be interacting with experts from all around the world, so you will establish new network. You will make new contacts and also new friends. I think this is very good. I participate in reviews for some time now, and this changed my life. I made new friends, and I think it can change the life of many people. So you also learn what countries are doing themselves to fight climate change, and you learn about success stories, and maybe these stories can be replicated in other countries. And finally, you'll be traveling around the world and learning different cultures, trying different foods, and this is quite rewarding as well. I don't know if maybe we don't have much more time. There is a couple of videos from.
Okay, my name is Tama Krug. I am a senior
I'll
researcher at the
only
National
a few
Institute
minutes
for Space Research
from
in
experts which
Brazil.
are involved in the review.
So I'm also the vice chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So that absolutely takes all my time, being a researcher, being the IPCC vice chair, and also participating in the review processes here at the convention. That's what I do in my, especially the work for the convention is what I do in my spare hours. Well, I have been reviewing and I'm doing technical assessments as well.
So maybe we will make this presentation available to you, and then there will be links for the videos. I will not take much more time. But it's interesting to hear firsthand the experience from reviewers that are already involved.
So I basically
My name is Nick
participate in most of
Macaluso. I'm from.
Let's see how
the process.
So these are the steps that you need to take to be part of a review team. So the first very step is to be nominated. So, and as I mentioned, CGIAR is a IGO, and according with the rules, they can nominate experts for the review. So the experts which are interested can access this link, and they will find instructions there on how to access the platform. And then they will have to fill their self-nomination form. They will have to provide their name, date of birth, also what is the institution they want to be nominated from. They will have to provide information on their expertise. So there's a form to be filled in, and then this will be submitted to the person which is responsible for nominating experts. And in the case of CGIAR, this is Miss Aditi. So she will be able to access the platform, assess your submission, and then approve your submission. From there on, you are nominated in the roster, and then you can do the examination. You can take the training because that's open access. You don't need to be nominated to start getting familiar with the training material. But for register for the examinations, you need to be nominated. So for example, you can start reading the training materials. And if you have the time, maybe you can still have do the examination until the end of the year. And then maybe next year during 2024, you can take one of the other training courses, the inventory course or the tracking progress or the support course, and then take the examination for that one. And then you will be ready to go. And once you have the necessary examinations and you are nominated, then the secretariat will then invite you for the review. So we have the database with all experts which are entitled to attend the reviews, and we will send invitations to those experts to do the reviews. And that's all from my side. So I'm available for questions. I don't know if you want to do it this now or later on. So as you wish. Lisa, back to you.
Yeah. So I do have some questions, but for time purposes, because I know Brian is need to leave, but if you don't mind, Pedro, staying until the end
Sure,
for the
yes,
questions,
that's fine.
because I, for one, have questions. So we'll go to the next segment, and let me just share my screen just to introduce the next set of um, uh, speakers, and there will be three. I sent them. What's happening here? I sent them series of questions. Oh, what happened to anyway, so sorry about this, the slides, but we have three people have been part of the expert roster with the UNFCCC. One is Diana Vargas, who is an expert on environmental management and climate change with more than 2 decades of experience, from data analyst to project leader in environmental information management, land use monitoring, air quality, emissions, among others. She's an expert in emissions inventories and their projections at the national level, actions and mitigation strategies, climate policies, QA, QC systems, MRV systems, wow, international reports, and capacity building at the international level, with particular emphasis on emissions from the AFOLO, LULUCF, sectors, and RED Plus reporting and review. She's a leader in the processes of design, startup, and operation of climate change and other environmental variables information management systems in Colombia. She's an accredited member of the roster of experts of the UNFCCC for analysis and review of national emission inventories, national communications, biennial reports, and biennial update reports. So Brian Suta, a PhD, is the science and data lead for Survey Amazonia, a program funded by USAID and NASA, working for the Special Informatics Group and residing in Lima, Peru. He has been part of UNFCCC roster of experts since 2016, nominated by Peru. He mostly participates in the technical assessment of proposed forest reference emission levels and/or forest reference levels for the implementation of RED Plus activities, RED Plus technical annex submitted in biennial update reports, and the technical analysis of BORs and non-Annex 1 parties. He received his PhD from the University of California, Los Angeles, and did his postdoctoral studies in NASA, JPL, where he focused on pan-tropical carbon modeling using remote sensing. And Zul, our very own Araujo Gutierrez from the IASA Biodiversity and Natural Resources Program. He's a research scholar who specializes in LULUCF, climate change policies, and economic analyses. She's a biologist with a master's degree in economics and public policy, an MBA, and a PhD in public policy, which she obtained under the framework of the partnership between the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation. She's part of the UNFCCC roster of experts since 2015 for technical review of greenhouse gas inventories, the annual information reported by Annex 1 parties, an in-depth review of Annex 1 party national communication, a review of biennial reports of developed country parties, matters related to non-Annex 1 party national communications, the technical analysis of biennial update reports from non-Annex 1 parties, and a technical assessment of proposed forest reference emission levels and/or forest reference levels for the implementation of RED Plus activities and also for the biennial transparency reports. Wow. So we have a great group of next set of speakers who will be talking with us. Let me stop sharing my screen about their experience being part of the TER. Because I know Brian is needs to be somewhere at 9, so maybe I can start with Brian about him sharing the history of his involvement, why he got interested in it, and his experience applying and being part of the roster. So Brian, tell us about your experience.
Thank you so much. My apologies that I have to leave just a little bit early, but for sure, if there's any time that anybody would like to delve a little bit deeper in my experience, welcome, of course, to email me and get in contact. And I think my experience is very similar to others as far as like being nominated by the country. So I was nominated back in 2016. The way I started, though, was in RED Plus, and back then the Ministry of Environment of Peru was putting together their first National Forest Reference Line, and so I was working for the Ministry of the Environment, and I was a coordinator of the first National Forest Reference Line. And then, RED Plus was just sort of beginning, and the review process already been a couple of years, maybe a few years already in the works, and so I was nominated by then the vice minister, and it was a very easy process. It was just notifying the vice minister, who I was able to talk to for a little bit. It was very straightforward, putting in my information, and then my nomination appeared. And since then there has been other nominations to the rosters, of course, to the country. So it's a very interesting, a very useful experience, and there are bits of challenges as well. So I guess just to kind of make it maybe perhaps a little bit different from others, just what they talk about. So in the last few years, I've been concentrating on the RED Plus side. I've also participated in the follow parts of the biennial update reports, the ones that are changing now into the BTR. And one of the things to keep in mind is that everybody has different experiences and different backgrounds, and so it's very useful to just come in with what you have or what you know, and of course build up and learn more once you go into the review process. So I'm very much on the remote sensing side, and so on the remote sensing side, of course, they have the different perspective compared to a forest inventory side. And so in the process, or when they choose the teams for you to evaluate, very much the Secretariat is looking for that kind of differences in experiences. So when I get partnered with somebody else, oftentimes that other person is on the forest inventory side, and so me and the remote sensing side on the activity data side, then we kind of get together, put our minds together, and review our sections, if you will. There's always going to be someone who perhaps leads the writing process. It is kind of a long process in the sense that there are calendars. There are calendars of when these different parts of the review process occur, and that's something else to keep in mind. And just like Pedro said, there is 1 week or 5 days, if you will, that you're in-house, in the sense you might go to Bonn, for example, in Germany, and have a desktop review where you're looking at the different data, you're putting, trying to reconstruct what people have done. You don't necessarily have enough time, though, to do all the steps, full reconstruction, if you will, like putting it all into remote sensing and seeing if you get the right answers or the same answers, because it's just you don't have enough time. But before that 1 week process of the review, you also get some time to look at the information and kind of hopefully the party will also send you information. That's very important too, that there's that communication. And then after that week of review, they have a moment where you as a evaluating team can put together the report, finalize whatever questions you might have, and then the party will respond. So that's the part that makes it just a little bit longer. It's not that you will be putting full day's work on, continuously with reports coming back and forth, but for sure you'll be coming back to those questions later on. And so sometimes it can be quite long, in the sense that I've been part of reports that has lasted maybe a year and a half or 2 years, because the communication can be a little bit difficult. The parties have their own calendars, you know. Sometimes the parties, the countries have changes in their ministries as well, and so it gets a little bit difficult to come back and forth. Something else, and the last point I'll have, I know because the time is short, there's many characters, many actors, many people that you may be participating with, and that's the one of the rewarding parts, is that you start to learn about the different perspectives, and very much so. Besides the science, there's a lot of political decisions as well. So you get to understand each country's politics behind the science too. So that can be very interesting, and it could be also a challenge. But anyways, that's just a little snippet of my experience, and I continue be participating. And for sure, it's as time goes on, as technology changes and the perspectives become a little bit different, all of this will start to grow and develop, and it'll be very interesting. Hopefully, we can all get to a point where we really start to mitigate climate change. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Brian. You're going now, or you're staying with us until? Okay. So yeah. Anyway, so maybe Zul, do you have? Would you say you have the same experience as Brian about being part of the roster? Zul?
Thank you, Elisa. Well,
Yeah.
First of all, I'm really happy to see Diana and Brian. With both, I have the experience to work with, not exactly in the reviews, but to work with both of them. So I think that there are two things. One is the personal thing in the process. It's true that you can learn a lot, not only in the courses, but also being with the countries and having different perspectives. One of the points is that you need to recognize that difference could exist. And you are going to review the report and not the decisions made by the countries to choose a specific policy or measure that they are going to implement. So it's really interesting how you learn to respect that and consider only the technical elements of the reports. You learn, you meet a lot of experts from different countries. You made good friends, that's true. Pedro said that, but also you learn a lot from the different sectors and the different perspectives and the different backgrounds. I got nominated also by Mexico as a country. I participated in the first biannual update report, and based on that, they select a team of people to be nominated. I think that the countries can nominate many times, so there are a lot of experts from Mexico. I think more than 50 right now. One of the challenge, and it's to recognize that you're going to involve time on it. It's not only the review week, as Brian said, you need to work on the review previews. I think that the whole process, if I'm not wrong, is around 16 weeks. You don't need to be full-time working on it, but you need to invest some time to read the report before, to prepare the checklist, to prepare the first draft of questions. The country answers to you the questions online also, and then you have space for clarification during the review week. And later on, you need to prepare the draft report to receive comments and everything. So it's a process that you need to consider. You need to have time to work with. But the nomination, I think that the easiest part is the nomination process. To prepare the exam, to take the courses. Sometimes the question I can say that are a little bit tricky. We need to be really careful with the language, even more for all the non-English speakers, because sometimes the words mean a little bit different in the kind of legal terms. So I just let you know to be aware of the mandatory and not mandatory things that are a little bit tricky when you review it. But yeah, mainly that. I think that it has been a great experience. I have learned a lot. And I always said to the countries that I learn more than the things that I can share with them.
Zul, just a question that you mentioned, because you said the easiest part is the nomination. So what's the most challenging part then?
I think the review process per se, because it's you have these meetings with the convention, but you need to work a lot alone before the review week. I think that that's the most challenging part, because at the end it's an additional activity for you. So you need to be conscious that you need to handle both things, your daily activities and the revision process. And you also have deadlines. So yes, you can say like, no, I'm not available for this review. I'm going to be available for another one, but it's a 16. If I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure that it's 16 weeks, but you need to be available during that weeks. And for example, the countries, they have like, they need to send you comments during the next 4 weeks, but you don't know when they are going to send it to you. And when they send it to you, you have 5 days to attend and to check the process. So I think that the most challenging part is how you manage the time during the reviews. That is not only 1 week. And the other thing is how you review the reports. Because at the end, yes, you have a checklist, but it's a little bit open to interpretation, and trying not to bring your misconceptions or your ideas in the review process. I think that it's the challenging part. To be open to, is not what I think that it's right or wrong. It's what they are presenting, and if they are following or not the guidelines. And at least for me, the first time, I was not exactly focused on that, but it's really easy based on your expertise not to judge, but to have an expected suggestion to the countries. And you cannot suggest how they are doing the things, if they are following or not the guidelines and how they complete the process. So that part is, I think, that a little bit challenging to keep in that position, that what are you going to review.
Okay, very interesting. And then you also mentioned something about the language. Is everything in English? Is that what you were saying? It's not with the local language of, for example, if in Colombia, is it in Spanish or what? I just want to clarify that.
You choose the language that you are able to speak and to read. So all the process with the convention and with the countries is mainly in English through the platform. But for sure, if you speak Spanish in the meetings with the countries, you can speak to them or ask to them in Spanish. But the process in general is in English, but it's more, there are 2 tricky words, or at least for me. Maybe Diana and Brian had a different perspective, but for me, the should and the shall, that one is mandatory and the other one is not mandatory, for me at the beginning was a process to think and to catch it. Because if you translate them exactly to Spanish, is not exactly the same meaning in that way. But no, I think that you can choose. Also, if you speak French, for example, you can review the French report and it's going to be easier for you to understand it. So yes, the reports are in Spanish or sometimes in the country language, but the review process is in English.
Very interesting. Brian, would you like to say anything to that? Because I know before we turn to Diana about that
Yeah.
experience.
No, yeah, there is one thing too I would like to add. There are reports that they don't follow the rules, right? So there are moments that, for the most part, it's very much a communication, and they will adjust if it's under the decisions, and they're allowed to. They can go back and adjust, the reports, adjust their analysis. But there have been times when the countries, for different reasons, have changed their methodologies, are maybe not as transparent, etc. So there are moments that, as long as you follow your guidelines, right? The guidelines are done by the Secretariat, and you report. And just like Zucledia was saying, shall, the country shall, the country, may. There's all very specific wording, but you report it.
All right, thanks, Brian. So we'll turn to Diana now about her experience. Diana, do you share? Do you have similar experiences? You're from Colombia, no? Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm Colombian.
Yeah, okay. So tell us about your experience then.
So in my case, was similar. The nomination process was slightly different from the process, how the process is now. But I was nominated by the country. I used to be part of the IDEAM team from the forest and carbon monitoring system. So this was a team that was in charge for the design and operation of the a system for the monitoring, reporting, and the red reports from Colombia, and in the IDEAM. So it was a public institution. So this process of formulating the design of the MRB system for forests was the experience that led the Colombian government to nominate me for the roster and for take the training to the GSG inventory review for the Annex 1 country. This happened in 2012. So it was it was not the first nominated for the roster, but it was the fifth nominated for the training for review. So in the first moment, I personally doesn't know what implies this nomination, really. So I immediately began the online training, and then I gradually understand what commitment implies to be part of the roster and to be part of the review teams. So this was initially an honor to be nominated by the country. It was not an auto-nomination, self-nomination process, but it was the beginning for a very different kind of experience that not only the training, but also be part of the first teams of the first Latino American experts in the teams of the review was a very important experience for us.
Yeah, interesting. And how many reviews have you been? Like three to three reviews you've been part of?
For the GSG inventories of the Annex 1, I think was 3. Then I was part of the pair of BUR and the reference levels of forest in the red reporting process.
Oh, okay. And the process is the same for all of these reviews, just to clarify. Like the 16 weeks, 1 week of
the process is similar. It's an approach combined with some part in online training, some part with a face-to-face or presential training and evaluation certification. Normally we have one basic transversal module, and then at least one or two sectoral specific module, and then we have the certification, and we can be part of the expert teams for participate in the review. So we can be part of the review centralized in Bonn. That is a really good experience for those sharing space, learning space, and discussing with the countries, but also with the other experts. And then we have also the option of the desk review. That is a little bit tricky, but because we need to harmonize the time for the country, the expert that comes from different parts of the globe, and that demands not only time, but also flexibility to be connected at any time. So that's similar for the GSG review, and then for the UR and the red reports, it's in general similar, but every case was have the specifically key in each case.
Okay, that's great. Gives us some information. But yeah, because I know Pedro mentioned before that there will be some of this review happening in Bonn, but it doesn't happen all the time, right? That you go to Bonn for the review. It depends on the. I guess we can ask later with Pedro how it happens when you have to have the review in Bonn. So we have, I think, for about 7 minutes, if we have some questions for the three speakers before we move to Steve for the last segment, and then we can have a longer segment for questions and answers. So anyone who has questions for Brian, I don't know if Brian's still going to be with us, but for Zul or for Diana, otherwise we can bring it toward the end. Okay, so far I'm not seeing anything, so maybe I can turn it to Steve for the last segment of the webinar and then the Q&A later. Steve?
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Eliza. So for those who don't know me, I'm supporting Lou and Eliza with the strategic engagement in the UNFCCC work. So coming at this more from the policy uptake and policy engagement side of things, and so Eliza's asked me to just say a few words in relation to what we're doing here when it comes to transparency and what this means in relation to the Mitigate Plus initiative. So just very quickly, it's thanks very much, Eliza, for bringing this together, and thanks everybody for participating. It's really great to see this this coming together, and it's been a bit of a journey that we've been taking within the context of the initiative itself. To really be honing in on the work on transparency. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on in this climate process, and so working out the specific areas to be focusing on and where the strengths are within the project is something of importance. And so when it comes to the enhanced transparency framework, it's important for everybody to know that this, or those who are involved in the Mitigate Plus initiative anyway, that this is an important impact pathway that we have identified within the project in and of itself. And just to pick up on Zul's points there, on the before I get into it, on the legal language and the nuance, it's interesting to hear that from, or to hear the comments that you're making from the reviewer side. You know, I'm usually on the sort of other side in terms of the text reviewing and working with people who are involved in the development of the language that then goes into these sorts of agreements. And so seeing that coming up there in terms of the legal language around the shall and the should and all the rest of it is interesting. So and it does come. I mean, the reason for that is because these outcomes from these conferences are a very delicate balance as a result of many years of negotiations that take place. The enhanced transparency framework, or that part of the Paris Agreement, for example, took several years to develop up before 2015 in and of itself, and there's been work going on since then. So a huge amount of negotiation goes into this, and it's a very delicate balance between developed and developing countries, especially on this issue, and so that's why that happens. And so in terms of I'll just make a couple of very brief points. Hopefully we can get into a bit more discussion and questions that may come up, but just wanted to speak very briefly about the role. I think some of it's already been raised by Pedro and others in terms of the benefits of participating in a process like this and going through the process of gaining the accreditation as a technical expert reviewer. There are obvious opportunities that come up in terms of career development, credibility in your role, as well as the funding opportunities, as well as gaining additional knowledge that can contribute to the projects that you're involved in specifically. But in terms of the Mitigate Plus initiative, one of the areas of emphasis that we're also honing in on within the context of the transparency framework is that of capacity development. There's a very extensive amount of work that's happening because this is a new process under the Paris Agreement. We're now, as Pedro had mentioned in his slides, we're moving towards the first round of enhanced transparency reports, which will take place or be submitted in December 2024 or between during the course of 2024. And so capacity is very much needed, especially for developing countries. And so supporting the capacity development there is an important part of what we're planning on doing. And through this process, there are other benefits that can emerge, such as building relationships with countries and working directly with representatives from countries to be supporting the way that they're going about implementing the Paris Agreement and supporting the achievement of the goals of the Paris Agreement, and can also move towards, in some cases, negotiator support. Negotiator support is something that is very important also when it comes to engagement in these processes. And as we know, there's quite often a fairly high turnover of government representatives. And so as new people are always coming into a very complex process, it's good to be able to be providing that level of support. Another area just to hone in on, which is important for the Mitigate Plus initiative, is that direct engagement in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And that can come, I think, through this area of work, perhaps through three ways. One is direct engagement at the national level with countries. As I've mentioned, this can be supporting countries there with their NDCs, with their compliance with the requirements of the Paris Agreement. And as was mentioned by Pedro, this is a legally binding aspect of the Paris Agreement, so countries are expected to do this. There's also an international support component to it that is worth considering. So as people go through the process and gaining this deeper understanding of the process around transparency and the detail, that can then move into direct support, as I've mentioned, for negotiators and working within that international negotiation space and informing the process, especially where new negotiations emerge and new issues are coming up in the negotiations. People who have that deeper understanding are in a much better position to be, say, for example, identifying where there are improvements that may be needed. And then just as a very final point, enhancing engagement with the UNFCCC Secretariat, which is also an important part of the work when it comes to this international policy process. And so a good example of that is having Pedro here today with us and speaking. So through these sorts of relationships, we're able to have that deeper level of engagement, as well as being and participating in events and workshops that are organised throughout the course of things through the UNFCCC. So on the part of the Mitigate Plus initiative, as I'd mentioned, this is an area of focus. And at the moment, the focus is very much on supporting countries to be moving in the direction of their enhanced transparency reports in 2024, as well as capacity building. And so we would encourage people that are interested to take it up if it's an area that particularly interests you and is of benefit to you, and that can be done by either reaching out to Eliza, Lou, or myself, or of course Aditi directly if you may, and for any assistance that you may need to work towards nominations. So with that, back to you, Eliza.
Thanks, Steve. So we are now opening the floor for questions. So if you have questions, please raise your hands and I will call your name. But I do have questions. First to Pedro. So for example, if I get nominated by an IGO, can I choose the countries to review their reports? Because, for example, I'm part of Mitigate Plus. We have 4 countries right now that we're focusing on, and that might expand in the future. Can that be possible? Because if I'm not, of course, if by national nomination, probably my country, but for me, it benefits probably if I focus on the countries that we're working on. Is that possible?
I will answer your question, Elisa, but also I will address some comments that were made before. So the Secretariat will set up the review teams, taking into account gender balance, geographical balance, expertise, also a balance between new experts and experienced experts, and then they will send invitations. So it's not possible for you to say, I want to review that country or the other country. So you will send invitations, and you will know which parties you will be engaged with. So that's how it works. So it's not possible to choose the country. However, we will take into account expertise and balances to ensure that the team is fit for purpose. I hear that the examinations sometimes they have tricky language, and yes, we received several complaints from experts and from lead reviewers that the previous exams that were under the convention, they included some tricky language, and we did a lot of effort to change this in the exams for the Paris Agreement, because we are not interested in assessing language skills. We want to assess review skills, and that's what we are trying to do with the new examinations, which are fully automated. So it's based on true, false questions, multi-choice answers, and you will know the result immediately after you will finalize your examination. I also hear about the workloads for participating in review teams. And I understand for new experts, it's a lot of information, and this could be overwhelming in the beginning. We understand that, but please rest assured that you are not alone in the teams. Yeah, there will be more experienced review experts which are willing to help you. The lead reviewers will also help you, and the review officers can also provide you support. So it's normal to be overwhelmed, but you will not be alone, and you will be provided with the support needed. And I can also confirm that the review reports are done in English. But again, we are not looking for your language skills. So if you don't write perfect English, that is not a problem. What is important is that you write the issue that the party has, and you write what type of improvements they need to do. The formal language or the grammar will then be handled by the secretariat, because we have editors to handle that part of the review. And I also hear about the timeline. Yeah, there's a long timeline. I show it in one of my slides. We want to start the reviews in early 2025, and the first review reports are to be published in August. So there's a long timeline, but you will not be working full time in the reports during all this period. So there will be a time before the review week where you will assess the report by the party, and not the whole report, but the sections which you were assigned to, the sections which are related to your expertise. For example, if you are inventory expert, then you look at the inventory, and not to all the sectors, but to the sectors in which your expertise is based. And then there is the review week, and there you'll be fully engaged during the 5 days. And then there will be times where you will receive the report for your inputs, because there might be some clarifications needed, or the party has a different understanding of how they are implementing the rules. So there might need the need for the team to come back to the report. And when you participate in reviews, you need to be aware of some political sensitivities. While I was I was a national expert when I was in Portugal, and we received a visit from an expert review team, and I was so nervous. But now that I'm on the other side doing the reviews, I understand there's no reason for experts from the country to be nervous, because this is like a learning experience for both the ERT and for the experts from the party. So everyone is learning. But still, there are political sensitivities in some countries. If a member of the expert review team says in a very rough manner that something is wrong, this could result in the expert from the party being fired. So we need to pay attention to this kind of sensitivities, and the review officers and the secretariat are there to help you also to understand these elements of the review. So back to you, Elisa. Thank you very much. And I also want to thanks to the experts. I really appreciate you supporting the review process and being engaged in reviews. This is very important for the secretariat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the sense that I'm getting is that they enjoyed so much they keep doing it. So anyway, I have a question about because you said geographic balance. And I'm thinking about the funding. Is that also part of the consideration that, for example, I'm in Colombia, maybe I'll pair you in the region for parties, or just a question because, of course, the funding you probably need to consider that, no? So hopefully, I wonder if that's part of the consideration of the UNFCCC when choosing experts.
No, it's not about the funding. We need to ensure that there is in the review teams there are a certain number of experts coming from Annex 1 parties, from developed country parties, and a certain number that are coming from developing country parties. So that's the reason, this geographical balance. Of course, there's financial implications on that. The experts from developing country parties, they receive support from the Secretariat for traveling and subsistence, whereas the experts from Annex 1 parties, they will have to secure funding from their own governments. And the same for the experts from intergovernmental organizations.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question actually for Steve. Steve, you mentioned about negotiator support that could be, that could be helped if we get into the TER. Maybe you can clarify that more. You mentioned it. So
Yeah. At the moment, and I mean, Pedro can probably speak more to this than me, but I mean, at the moment, the emphasis on what's happening within the context of the transparency work is very much at the national level. So, I mean, the last few years have been a major focus on finalising, especially since the pandemic had ended and people were able to finalise the modalities, procedures, and guidance, and the sort of the finalisation of the negotiations since Paris. That international work has essentially been finalised enough. I'm not sure whether these things are ever fully finalised, but perhaps finalised enough for the moment. And so now the emphasis is very much on countries getting their first round of reports finalised and submitted by December, 2024. So when it comes to the opportunities that the CG or CIAT or any of the organizations or scientists that are working within projects or within institutions have, there are support needs that the country representatives have both at the national level and possibly in their role as a negotiator at the international level. So it depends on the circumstances and it depends on the issues that are coming up. But say, for example, if someone is a strong expert in greenhouse gas inventories and all of a sudden we find ourselves in some sort of a negotiation down the track that concerns the approach to greenhouse gas inventories, then a person who's working with someone at the national level may find themselves in a position where they're also providing a certain level of support to that country in the way that they're engaging within the international negotiation space from a technical standpoint. So, I mean, it's difficult to sort of be specific because it's quite a sort of a broad area of work, but essentially there is that potential there to be providing support at both the national and the international level. I hope that answers that.
Pedro, would you like to add to that, to what Steve said? about providing negotiator support, because this is what we're hoping to do as part of the initiative as well.
Maybe I'm not sure if Zul's about to come in, but on that, I mean, I think that the area of emphasis here within the M+ initiative, and Pedro, you might have some insights to offer on this, and that is how there can be engagement in the capacity development work that's coming through around transparency, and so this is more the area of emphasis. There are people that are working within the initiative that are already engaged, such as the folks that we have here with us today, but we're also looking at how to bring other expertise from within the project into the capacity development space, and there it might be people who I'm not sure whether people involved in the capacity development need to be accredited, whether there are other expertise that's coming into that. So it'd be good to understand a bit more about the sort of emerging work on capacity development around the enhanced transparency framework.
We have a team in the Secretariat that is focused on that, because many countries need to transition to be ready to start reporting under the ETF. So we have a team in the Secretariat. It's headed by Jigme. I can provide you the contacts, and there's a lot of initiatives like training, seminars, for them to be ready for starting the reporting under the Paris Agreement. Countries are in a very different position in terms of capacity to report under the Paris Agreement. We have several countries, developing country parties, that are already have a lot of capacity and are reporting already at levels of the Annex 1 parties. But others, they have not yet prepared their first BUR, so they still have a way to go. And I think preparing the first BURs, it's a very good learning experience and a good way to put the countries in position to start reporting under the ETF. But I can put you in contact with our colleagues here in the Secretariats, which are provided support to developing country parties to be prepared for the ETF.
Thanks so much, Pedro. Anyone else with questions? I don't want to. Oh, Zul, go ahead.
I just have a quick question to Pedro. So these dates for the exams is going to be also the same date for the other courses that starts in September? Okay.
No, so the dates, the 4th and 5th examination cycles are for the overview course. Then the sectoral specific courses for the greenhouse gas inventories and disease and support, these training programs will become available this month. And the examinations for those training programs we expect them to become available early 2025. All the experts in the roster, which are nominated, will then receive a notification or an email informing that the training and the examinations will become available.
Steve?
Yeah, I actually had a question as well. I just wanted to ask Pedro, if possible, so just picking up on the point that you just mentioned about countries being in different places, and the upcoming round of enhanced transparency reports that are expected in 2024. It might be good to, and this is one of the, I guess, maybe the new components of the system, is the flexibility component. The question of flexibility was a big issue in the negotiations in terms of what it means, and so as we're headed towards December 2024. What are we expecting, and what does it mean in terms of flexibility for some countries who probably won't be putting their reports on? What percentage are we expecting at this point? It'd just be good to have a bit of an understanding there. Thanks.
Yeah. So the flexibility provisions available for developing country parties, they are very specific. So there is not much room for interpretation in terms of those flexibilities. So, for example, if a party wants to use flexibility to report on the inventory, they can report the inventory until 3 years of the current year, 3 years back to the current year, to the year of submission. Whereas all other parties, they have to provide the emission trend until 2 years back within the year of submission. So these very specific provisions. And I think for LDCs and seeds, they also have some flexibility in providing or submitting the reports at their discretion. So I think they will have more flexibility. They don't have to report by the end of 2024. They have more flexibility to report later on. And there are other flexibility provisions regarding the inventory, for example. They, in terms of uncertainty that parties have to report regarding the inventory, those parties that need flexibility, they can just report a qualitative assessment of the uncertainty. So flexibility provisions are established by the MPGs. They are very specific, and the party needs to identify or to report when they access to these flexibility provisions.
All right. So unless there are other questions from anyone else, I would like to thank Pedro, Diana, Zul, Steve, and Brian's no longer here, but for taking the time to speak to us and clarify, the process of applying and taking part in the technical expert review. And if you have questions for Pedro, send them to me for clarification about the process. And with that, I would like to thank again everyone for listening, and wishing everyone a good day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Bye-bye.
Pedro, I will wait for the presentation that you have.
Yes, I will send to you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.